Porto is the second largest city in Portugal, after Lisbon, and one of the major urban areas in southern Europe and the capital of the second major great urban area in Portugal, the urban area of Porto, which extends beyond the administrative limits of the city, has a population of 1.3 million in an area of 389 km², making it the second largest urban area in Portugal. The Porto Metropolitan Area includes an estimated 2 million people. It is recognized as a Gamma-level global city by the Globalization and World Cities study group, being one of 5 cities on the Iberian Peninsula with global city status. Located along the Douro River estuary in northern Portugal, Porto is one of the oldest European centers, and registered as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1996. Its settlement dates back many centuries, when it was an outpost of the Roman Empire. Its Latin name, Portus Cale, has been referred to as the origin for the name Portugal, based on transliteration and oral evolution from Latin. In Portuguese, the name of the city is spelled with a definite article as Oporto. Consequently, its English name evolved from a misinterpretation of the oral pronunciation and referred to as Oporto in modern literature and by many speakers. One of Portugal's internationally famous exports, port wine, is named for Porto, since the metropolitan area, and in particular the adegas of Vila Nova de Gaia, were responsible for the production and export of the fortified wine. The Porto region is also a major producer of cork. History. Early history. The history of Porto dates back to the 4th century, to the Roman occupation of the Iberian Peninsula. Celtic and Proto-Celtic ruins have been discovered in several areas, and their occupation has been dated to about 275 BC. During the Roman occupation, the city developed as an important commercial port, primarily in the trade between Lisbona and Bracara Augusta. Porto fell under the control of the Moors during the invasion of the Iberian Peninsula in 711. In 868, Valmara Pérez, a Christian warlord from Galicia, and a vassal of the King of Asturias, La Copyright on Galicia, Alfonso III, was sent to reconquer and secure the lands from the Moors. This included the area from the Minho to the Douro River, the settlement of Portus Cale and the area that is today known as Vila Nova de Gaia. Portus Cale, later referred to as Portugal, was the origin for the modern name of Portugal. In 868, Count Valmara Pérez established the County of Portugal, or, usually known as Condado Portucalense, after reconquering the region north of Douro. In 1387, Porto was the site of the marriage of John I of Portugal and Philippa of Lancaster, daughter of John of Gaunt. This symbolized a long-standing military alliance between Portugal and England. The Portuguese-English alliance, see the Treaty of Windsor, is the world's oldest recorded military alliance. In the 14th and the 15th centuries, Porto's shipyards contributed to the development of Portuguese shipbuilding. It was also from the port of Porto that, in 1415, Prince Henry the Navigator embarked on the conquest of the Moorish port of Ceuta, in northern Morocco. This expedition by the king and his fleet, which counted among others Prince Henry, was followed by navigation and exploration along the western coast of Africa, initiating the Portuguese Age of Discovery. The nickname given to the people of Porto began in those days. Portuenses are to this day, colloquially, referred to as tripeiros, referring to this period of history, when higher quality cuts of meat were shipped from Porto with their sailors, while off-cuts and byproducts, such as tripe, were left behind for the citizens of Porto. Tripe remains a culturally important dish in modern-day Porto. 18th century. Wine, produced in the Douro Valley, was already in the 13th century transported to Porto in barcos reblos. In 1703 the Methuen Treaty established the trade relations between Portugal and England. In 1717, a first English trading post was established in Porto. The production of port wine then gradually passed in the hands of a few English firms. To counter this English dominance, Prime Minister Marquis of Pombal established a Portuguese firm receiving the monopoly of the wines from the Douro Valley. He demarcated the region for production of port, to ensure the wine's quality. This was the first attempt to control wine quality and production in Europe. the small wine growers revolted against his strict policies on Shrove Tuesday, burning down the buildings of this firm. The revolt was called Revolta dos Barracos. Between 1732 and 1763, Italian architect Niccolò Nesini designed a Baroque church with a tower that would become its architectural and visual icon, the Torre dos Riegos. During the 18th and 19th centuries the city became an important industrial center and saw its size and population increase. 19th century, the invasion of the Napoleonic troops in Portugal under Marshal Soult also brought war to the city of Porto. On March 29, 1809, as the population fled from the advancing French troops and tried to cross the river Douro over the Ponte das Barcas, the bridge collapsed under the weight. This event is still remembered by a plate at the Ponte de Louis I. The French army was routed out of Porto by Arthur Wellesley, 1st Duke of Wellington, when his Anglo-Portuguese army crossed the Douro River from the Mosteiro da Serra do Pilar in a brilliant daylight coup de main, using wine barges to transport the troops, so outflanking the French army. In August 24, 1820, a liberal revolution occurred, quickly spreading without resistance to the rest of the country. In 1822, a liberal constitution was accepted, partly through the efforts of the Liberal Assembly of Porto. When Miguel I of Portugal took the Portuguese throne in 1828, he rejected this constitution and reigned as an absolutist monarch. A civil war was then fought from 1828 to 1834 between those supporting constitutionalism, and those opposed to this change, keen on near-absolutism and led by D. Miguel. Porto rebelled again and had to undergo a siege of 18 months between 1832 and 1833 by the absolutist army. Porto is also called Cidade Invicta after successfully resisting the Miguelist siege. After the abdication of King Miguel, the liberal constitution was re-established. Known as the City of Bridges, Porto built its first permanent bridge, the Ponte das Barcas, in 1806. 3 years later, it collapsed under the weight of thousands of fugitives from the French invasions during the Peninsular War, causing thousands of deaths. It was replaced by the Ponte de Maria II, popularized under the name Ponte par Nsil and built between 1841 and €43. Only its supporting pylons have remained. The Ponte de Maria, a railway bridge, was inaugurated on November 4 of that same year. It was considered a feat of wrought iron engineering and was designed by Gustave Eiffel, notable for his Parisian tower. The later Ponte dom Louis replaced the aforementioned Ponte par Nsil. This last bridge was made by Théophile Seyrig, a former partner of Eiffel. Seyrig won a governmental competition that took place in 1879. Building began in 1881 and the bridge was opened to the public on October 31, 1886. A higher learning institution in nautical sciences and a stock exchange were established in the city, but would be discontinued later. Unrest by Republicans led to the first revolt against the monarchy in Porto on January 31, 1891. This would result ultimately in the overthrow of the monarchy and proclamation of the Republic by the 5 October 1910 revolution. 20th century, on January 19, 1919, forces favorable to the restoration of the monarchy launched in Porto a counter-revolution known as Monarchy of the North. During this time, Porto was the capital of the restored kingdom, as the movement was contained to the north. The monarchy would be deposed less than a month later and no other monarchist revolution in Portugal would happen again. In 1958 and 1960, Porto's streets hosted the Formula One Portuguese Grand Prix. The historic centre of Porto was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1996. The World Heritage Site is defined in two concentric zones. The protected area, and within it the classified area. The classified area comprises the medieval borough located inside the 14th-century Romanesque wall. Geography. In recent years, UNESCO recognized its historic centre as a World Heritage Site. Among the architectural highlights of the city, Porto Cathedral is the oldest surviving structure, together with the small Romanesque Church of Sodofita, the Gothic Igreja de São João do Francisco, the remnants of the city walls and a few 15th-century houses. The Baroque style is well represented in the city in the elaborate gildwork interior decoration of the churches of St. Francis and St. Clare, the churches of Mercy and of the Clerics, the Episcopal Palace of Porto, and others. The neoclassicism and romanticism of the 19th and 20th centuries also added interesting monuments to the landscape of the city, like the magnificent Stock Exchange Palace, the Hospital of St. Anthony, the municipality, the buildings in the Liberdade Square and the Avenida dos Aliados, the tile-adorned ʻpoɾtu Bento train station and the gardens of the Crystal Palace. A guided visit to the Palácio da Bolsa, and in particular the Arab Room, is a major tourist attraction. Many of the city's oldest houses are at risk of collapsing. The population in Porto municipality dropped by nearly 100,000 since the 1980s. But the number of permanent residents in the outskirts and satellite towns has grown strongly. Porto is ranked number 3 in the Portuguese Most Livable Cities survey of living conditions published yearly by Expresso. Administratively, the municipality is divided into 7 civil parishes: Aldo, Foz do Douro e Nova Guarda, Bonfim, Campana Pound, Sidofita, Santo Ildefonso, Zar Copyright, Maragara, ʻpoɾtu Nicolò e Vita Cubed Ria, Laudello do Ouro e Massarilos, Paranhos, Ramulda, International Relations. Twin towns are Euro-sister cities. Porto is twinned with partner towns. Within the context of development cooperation, Porto is also linked to climate. Porto features the Mediterranean climate. As a result, its climate shares many characteristics with the coastal south: warm, dry summers and mild, rainy winters. Unlike the south, however, cool and rainy interludes can interrupt the dry season, and the season's average length is usually shorter, with 3 dry months. Mean annual precipitation is high and Porto is one of the wettest cities of Europe. However, long periods with mild temperatures and sunny days are frequent even during the rainiest months. Summers are typically sunny with average temperatures between 16 degrees Celsius and 27 degrees Celsius, but can rise to as high as 40 degrees Celsius during occasional heat waves. During such heat waves the humidity remains quite low, but nearby forest fires can add haze and ash to the air, making breathing somewhat uncomfortable, especially at night. Nearby beaches are often windy and usually cooler than the urban areas. In contrast, occasional summer rainy periods may last a few days and are characterized by showers and cool temperatures of around 20 degrees Celsius in the afternoon. However, summer average temperatures are a few degrees cooler than those expected at more continentally Mediterranean-influenced metropolises on the same parallels, such as Barcelona and Rome. Winter temperatures typically range between 5 degrees Celsius during morning and 15 degrees Celsius in the afternoon, but rarely drop below 0 degrees Celsius at night. The weather is often rainy for long stretches, although prolonged sunny periods do occur. Economy. Porto never rivaled Lisbon in economic power, but as the most important city in the heavily industrialized northwest, many of the largest Portuguese corporations from diverse economic sectors, like Altri, Ambar, Demorim, Bile, Cerealis, BPI, CIN, Evasc, Frulact, Lactogal, Millennium BCP, Porto Editora, Grupo Orar, Sony, Sony Industria, and Unisa, are headquartered in the Greater Metropolitan Area of Porto, most notably, in the core municipalities of Maia, Matosinhos, Porto, and Vila Nova de Gaia. The country's biggest exporter has one of its 2 refineries near the city, in Lee section da Palmeira, and the second biggest has its only factory also near the city in Mindelo. The city's former stock exchange was transformed into the largest derivatives exchange of Portugal, and merged with Lisbon Stock Exchange to create the Bolsa de Valores de Lisboa e Porto, which eventually merged with Euronext, together with Amsterdam, Brussels, LIFFE and Paris Stock and Futures Exchanges. The building formerly hosting the stock exchange is currently one of the city's touristic attractions, the Sala Pão do Arraial being its major highlight. Porto hosts a popular Portuguese newspaper, Jornal de Noticias. The building where its offices are located was up to recently one of the tallest in the city. Porto Editora, one of the biggest Portuguese publishers, is also in Porto. Its dictionaries are among the most popular references used in the country, and the translations are very popular as well. The economic relations between the city of Porto and the upper Douro River have been documented since the Middle Ages. However, they were greatly deepened in the modern ages. Indeed, sumac, dry fruits and nuts and the Douro olive oils sustain prosperous exchanges between the region and Porto. From the riverside quays at the river mouth, these products were exported to other markets of the Old and New World. But the greatest lever to interregional trade relations resulted from the commercial dynamics of the port wine agro-industry. It decidedly bolstered the complementary relationship between the large coastal urban center, endowed with open doors to the sea, and a region with significant agricultural potential, especially in terms of the production of extremely high-quality fortified wines, today known by the world-famous label port. The development of Porto was also closely connected with the left margin of River Douro in Vila Nova de Gaia, where is located the amphitheater-shaped slope with the port wine cellars. In a study concerning competitiveness of the 18 Portuguese district capitals, Porto was the worst ranked. The study was made by Minu University economics researchers and was published in Público newspaper on September 30, 2006. The best-ranked cities in the study were Porto, Lisbon and Coimbra. Nevertheless, the validity of this study was questioned by some Porto's notable figures who argued that the city proper does not function independently but in conurbation with other municipalities. A new ranking, published in the newspaper Expresso in 2007 which can be translated to the best cities to live in Portugal ranked Porto in third place below Guimarães and Lisbon. The two studies are not directly comparable as they use different dependent measures. The Porto Metropolitan Area had a GDP amounting to $41.6 billion, and $20,641 per capita. Transport, roads and bridges. The road system capacity is augmented by the Via da Cintura Interna or A20, an internal highway connected to several motorways and city exits, complementing the Circunvalar-Picavolt Poundo four-lane peripheric road, which borders the north of the city and connects the eastern side of the city to the Atlantic shore. The city is connected to Vilnius Sectioner by Highway A28, to Estarreja by the A29, to Lisbon by the A1, to Oporto by the A4 and to Braga by the A3. There is also an outer ring road the A41 that connects all the main cities around Porto, linking the city to other major metropolitan highways such as the A7, A11, A42, A43 and A44. Since 2011, a new highway, the A32, connects the metropolitan area to São Paulo, João Paulo da Madeira and Oliveira de Asma. Copyright is. During the 20th century, major bridges were built. Arabidla Bridge, which at its opening had the biggest concrete supporting arch in the world, and connects north and south shores of the Douro on the west side of the city, João Paulo, to replace Di Maria Pier and Friexo, a highway bridge on the east side of the city. The newest bridge is Ponte do Infante, finished in 2003. Two more bridges are said to be under designing stages and due to be built in the next 10 years, one on the Campo Alegre area, nearby the Faculty of Humanities and the Arts, and another one in the area known as the Massareiros Valley. Porto is often referred to as Cidade das Pontes, besides its more traditional nicknames of Cidade Invicta, and Capital do Norte. Airports. Porto is served by Francisco de Sá Carneiro Airport which is located in Pedras Rubras, Moreira civil parish of the neighbouring municipality of Maia, some 15 kilometres to the northwest of the city centre. The airport is a state-of-the-art facility, having undergone a massive programme of refurbishment due to the Euro 2004 football championships being partly hosted in the city. Public transport, railways. Porto's main railway station is situated in Campana Pound, located in the eastern part of the city, Minu and Norte. From here, both light rail and suburban rail services connect to the city centre. The main central station is São Paulo Bento Station, which is itself a notable landmark located in the heart of Porto. Subway light rail. Currently the major project is the Porto Metro, a light rail system. Consequently, The Infantry Bridge was built for urban traffic, replacing the Dom Lua Si, which was dedicated to the subway on the second and higher of the bridge's 2 levels. 6 lines are open, lines A, B, C and D all begin at Estadio do Dragapão and terminate at Sena de Matosinhos, Pascal Cubdo de Varzim, ISMAIN Francisco Zá Carneiro Airport respectively. Line D currently runs from Hospital São João in the north to Santo Ovidio on the southern side of the Douro River. Line F, from Senhora da Hora to Facente Nzers. The lines intersect at the central Trindade station. Currently the whole network spans 60 km using 68 stations, thus being the biggest metro system in the country. Buses. The city has an extensive bus network run by the STCP which also operates lines in the neighboring cities of Gaia, Maia, Matosinhos and Gondoma. Other smaller companies connect such towns as Porções de Ferreira and Santo Tirso to the town centre. In the past the city also had trolley buses. A bus journey is €1.85, which can be paid in cash. Trams, a tram network, of which only 4 lines remain, one of them being a tourist line on the shores of the Douro, saw its construction begin in September 12, 1895, therefore being the first in the Iberian Peninsula. The lines in operation today all use vintage tram cars, so the service has become a heritage tramway. STCP also operates these routes. The first line of the area's modern tram, or light rail system, named Metro do Porto, opened for revenue service in January 2003. Culture. In 2001, Porto shared the designation European Culture Capital. In the scope of these events, the construction of the major concert hall space Casa da Música, designed by the Dutch architect Rem Koolhaas, was initiated and finished in 2005. The first Portuguese moving pictures were taken in Porto by Aura copyright Leo Dão Paz dos Reis and shown there on November 12, 1896 in Teatro do Principe Real de Porto, less than a year after the first public presentation by Auguste and Louis Lumiere. The country's first movie studios in Victor Films was also erected in Porto in 1917 and was opened from 1918 to 1927 in the area of Carvalhedo. Manuel de Oliveira, a Portuguese film director and the oldest director in the world who is still active, is from Porto. Fantasporto is an international film festival organized in Porto every year. Many renowned Portuguese music artists and cult bands such as GNR, Rui Veloso, Zá copyrighted Gio Godinho, Clappound, Pluto and Ornatos Violeta are from the city or its metropolitan area. Porto has several museums, concert halls, theatres, cinemas, art galleries, libraries and bookshops. The best-known museums of Porto are the National Museum Sós dos Reis, which is dedicated especially to the Portuguese artistic movements from the 16th to the 20th century, and the Museum of Contemporary Art of the Cereals Foundation. The city has concert halls of a rare beauty and elegance such as the Coliseu do Porto by the Portuguese architect Cassiano Branco. An exquisite example of the Portuguese decorative arts. Other notable venues include the historical São João National Theatre, the Rivoli Theatre, the Bitola Cinema and the recent Casa da Música. The city has the magnificent and beautiful Lello Bookshop, that was featured in 3rd place in The Guardian's list of world's top bookshops. From the 3 top bookshops, Lello was the only one that was originally built to be a bookshop, as the other ones were, respectively, a church and a theatre. Porto houses the largest synagogue in the Iberian Peninsula and one of the largest in Europe, GaWC Synagogue, inaugurated in 1938. Visiting this synagogue it is possible to get acquainted with the Jewish history and religion, to be in touch with significant historical objects and documents and to know more about the Jewish community of Porto over the centuries to the present day. Entertainment. Porto's most popular event is St. John on the night of 23 June 24. In this season it's a tradition to have a vase with bush basil decorated with a small poem. During the dinner of the great day people usually eat sardines and boiled potatoes together with red wine. Another major event is Queima das Fitas, that starts in the first Sunday of May and ends in the second Sunday of the month. Basically, before the beginning of the study period preceding the school year unregistered trademark last exams, academia tries to have as much fun as possible. The week has 12 major events, starting with the monumental Serenata on Sunday, and reaching its peak with the Cortejo a Cada copyright Mico on Tuesday, when about 50,000 students of the city's higher education institutions march through the downtown streets till they reach the City Hall. During every night of the week a series of concerts takes place on the Quiamakubdromo, next to the site unregistered trademark Park, where unregistered trademark also a tradition for the students in their second to last year to erect small tents where alcohol are sold in order to finance the trip that takes place during the last year of their course of study. An average of 50,000 students attend these shows. Porto was considered the fourth best value destination for 2012, by Lonely Planet. Arts. In 2005, the municipality funded a public sculpture to be built in the waterfront plaza of Matosinhos. The resulting sculpture is entitled She Changes by American artist, Janet Eshelman, and spans the height of 50 a 150 a 150 meters. Architecture. Due to its long history, the city of Porto carries an immense architectural patrimony. From the Romanesque cathedral to the social housing projects developed through the late 20th century, much could be said surrounding architecture. Porto is home to the Portus School of Architecture, one of the most prestigious architecture schools in Europe and the world. It is also home to two earners of the Pritzker Architecture Prize, Alvaro Siza Vieira and Eduardo Souto de Moura. Gastronomy. Porto is home to a number of dishes from traditional Portuguese cuisine. A typical dish from this city is trapaça moda do Porto, which still can be found everywhere in the city today. Bacalhau Gomes de Zar is another typical codfish dish born in Porto and popular in Portugal. The francisana, literally Frenchy, or more accurately Little French, is the most famous popular native snack food in Porto. It is a kind of sandwich with several meats covered with cheese and a special sauce made with beer and other ingredients. Port wine, an internationally renowned wine, is widely accepted as the city's dessert wine, especially being that the wine is made along the Douro River which runs through the city. Tourism. Over the last years, Porto has been experiencing an important touristic expansion, mainly caused by the Ryanair hub at Francisco de Sá Carneiro Airport. Porto won the European Best Destination 2012 and 2014 awards. Education. The city has a large number of public and private elementary and secondary schools, as well as kindergartens and nurseries. Due to the depopulation of the city's interior, however, the number of students has dropped substantially in the last decade, forcing a closure of some institutions. The oldest and largest international school located in Porto is the Oporto British School, established in 1894. Porto has several institutions of higher education, the largest one being the state-managed University of Porto, which is the largest Portuguese university with approximately 28,000 students and considered one of the 100 best universities in Europe. There are also a state-managed Polytechnic Institute, the Instituto Politécnico do Porto, and private institutions like the Lusíada University of Porto, Universidade Fernando Pessoa, the Porto's Higher Education School of Arts and a Vatican State University, the Portuguese Catholic University in Porto and the Portucalense University in Porto. Due to the recognition, potential for employment and higher revenue, there are many students from the entire country, particularly from the north of Portugal, attending a college or university in Porto. For foreigners wishing to study Portuguese in the city there are a number of options. As the most popular city in Portugal for Erasmus students, most universities have facilities to assist foreigners in learning the language. There are also several private learning institutions in the city. Public health. Porto district has the highest rate of tuberculosis positive cases in Portugal. Porto tuberculosis rates are at third world proportions. The incidence of positive cases was 23/100,000 nationwide in 1994, with a rate of 24/100,000 in Lisbon and 37/100,000 in Porto. Porto area represented the worst epidemiological situation in the country, with very high rates in some city boroughs and in some poor fishing and declining industrial communities. Epidemiological analysis indicated the existence of undisclosed sources of infection in these communities, responsible for continuing transmission despite a cure rate of 83% in the district. In 2002, the situation was not better, with 34/100,000 nationwide and 64/100,000 in Porto district. In 2004 the situation improved to 53/100,000. Sport. Porto, in addition to football, is the home to many athletic sports arenas, most notably the city-owned Pavilião Rosa Mota, swimming pools in the area of Constitui Picavolt and other minor arenas, such as the Pavilião do Academy Mico. Porto is home to northern Portugal's only cricket club, the Oporto Cricket and Lawn Tennis Club. Annually, for more than 100 years, a match has been played between the Oporto Club and the Casuals Club of Lisbon, in addition to sporadic games against touring teams. The club's pitch is located off the Rua Campo Alegre. In 1958 and 1960, Porto's streets hosted the Formula One Portuguese Grand Prix on the Boa Vista Street circuit, which are reenacted annually, in addition to a World Touring Car Championship race. Every year in October the Porto Marathon is held through the streets of the old city of Porto. Football. As in most Portuguese cities, football is the most important sport. There are two main teams in Porto, FC Porto in Campana Pound and Boa Vista in Ramalda. FC Porto is one of the big three, and a major club in Europe. Boa Vista is considered the second club in the city, having won the championship once, in the 2000-2001 season, but the club had financial and disciplinary problems and was demoted 2 tiers. Formerly, Salgueiros from Paranhos was a regular first division club during the 1980s and 1990s, but, due to financial indebtedness, the club folded in the 2000s. The club was refounded in 2008, and started to play at the regional level. They have since been promoted several times, and they now play at the third level of Portugal's national football pyramid. The new Salgueiros club, however, plays outside the city in Pedroa Section Os, Maia. The biggest stadiums in the city are the Estádio do Dragão and the Estádio do Bessa. The first team in Porto to own a stadium was Academy Mico, who played in the Estádio do Lima. Academy Mico was one of the 8 teams to dispute the first Primeira Liga. Salgueiros, who sold the grounds of Estádio Engenheiro Vidal Pinheiro Field to the Porto Metro and planned on building a new field in the Arca da Igreja area of Porto. Located a few hundred meters away from the old grounds, it became impossible to build on this land due to a large underground water pocket, and, consequently, they moved to the Estádio do Mar in Matosinhos. Other amateur football clubs also have fields in Porto, but with the exception of FC Porto's old stadium and football school, these fields have only sand or dirt. For the Euro 2004 football competition, held in Portugal, the Estádio do Dragão was built and the Estádio do Bessa was renovated. FC Porto won the 1986 Euro 87 European Cup, the 1987 Intercontinental Cup, the 1987 European Super Cup, the 2002-03 UEFA Cup, the 2003 Euro 04 UEFA Champions League, the 2004 Intercontinental Cup and the 2010 Euro 11 UEFA Europa League. Notable citizens: Alexander Quintanilha, Euro scientist; Almeida Garrett, Euro notable writer, theatre director and liberalist; Alvaro Siza Vieira, Euro architect; Anticube Nyonoba, was a poet. He died of tuberculosis in Foz do Douro, Porto, in 1900, after trying to recover in a number of places. His masterpiece Ã was the only book he published. Anticube Nyo Pino Vargas, a Euro composer; Anticube Nyo da Silva Porto was a Portuguese trader and explorer in Angola, in the Portuguese West Africa. The town of Couto, founded by the Portuguese and named Belmonte at that time, was renamed Silva Porto. Anticube Nyo Soares dos Reis, sculptor; Brás Cubas, Portuguese explorer. colonial administrator and founder of Santos in Brazil; Bruno Alves, footballer; Charles Albert of Sardinia, Euro-Italian monarch; Diogo Vasconcelos, politician and social innovator; ʻpoɾtu Pereira, Euro-Portuguese nobleman, military leader, colonial administrator and founder of Olinda in Brazil; Duda, footballer; Eduardo Souto de Moura, Euro-architect; Esteva Pound Gomes, also known as Esteban Gar-Cubed-Mes, and Esteban Gar-Cubed-Mes was a cartographer and explorer. He sailed at the service of Spain in the fleet of Ferdinand Magellan, but deserted the expedition before reaching the Strait of Magellan, and returned to Spain in May 1521. In 1524 he explored present-day Nova Scotia, sailing south along the Maine coast. He entered New York Harbor, saw the Hudson River, and eventually reached Florida in August 1525. Because of his expedition, the 1529 Diogo Ribeiro world map outlines the east coast of North America almost perfectly. Werner Pound de Magla Pound is a the globe circumnavigation navigator. Probably born in Porto, but surely lived and studied in this town. Francisco Sá Carneiro, former Prime Minister; Francisco Vieira de Matos, painter; Freitas Magla Pound is a psychologist and scientist; Guilhermina Jogia, a cellist. Born at Porto, Henrique Lario, a Chelsea Football Club goalkeeper. Born in Porto, Jorge Nuno Pinto da Costa, president of Futebol Clube do Porto; José Copyright Pacheco Pereira, politician, professor and political analyst; Jálio Diniz, a doctor and writer; Coelzada Riego, a general of the Portuguese army; Manuel de Oliveira, a film director; Miguel Sousa Tavares, a writer; Pedro Abrunhosa, a singer-songwriter; Pedro de Escobar, a Renaissance composer; Para Vaz de Caminha, wrote the letter Carta do Atramento do Brasil, announcing the discovery of Brazil; Prince Henry the Navigator, responsible for the early development of European exploration and maritime trade with other continents. Romulo Ortega Pound a writer; Raul Meireles, footballer; Richard Zimler, a novelist; Rosa Mota, marathon runner, Olympic gold medalist; Rui Rianinu, singer; Sofia de Mello Brainer Andriessen, a writer; Tiago Monteiro, a racing driver; Uriel da Costa, Jewish philosopher. See also. References. External links: Porto Travel Guide from Wiki Voyage, Porto Essential Guide.